Welcome to the Highland Park Library presents Library in Your Living Room. I'm Calli, a youth services librarian, and I am here to talk to you today about word books. So if you are a parent or caregiver of a child birth through around age 3, you probably read a lot of these. So here are some tips for choosing the right ones for your baby or toddler's development. So it's important to note when looking at word books that this is not like picking a book for grown-ups or even older kids. So we might choose a book for ourselves based on a story, based on the text mainly. But for babies and for young toddlers, it is a completely sensory experience. So the book is more than just about reading. So the baby is making connections between the text and the pictures, between what the parent and caregiver says when they're reading it, and they're holding the book, they're touching the book, they're learning to turn a few pages at once, maybe one page by itself as they're learning and growing in their fine motor skills. And a lot of books these days that are published have a little bit of a tactile element to it. So there might be things that are there for the baby to specifically touch. And of course, if it's not a library book, baby might also be mouthing the book, chewing on it. There might be some sensory development in that direction as well. Again, not library books. And of course, they're experiencing the love and attention of their caregiver at the same time that all this is happening. So that whole sensory experience involves visual, auditory, tactile cues, and it has a social emotional element in it. So this book is not just what it looks like on the page. It's a whole experience for a baby and for a toddler. So at birth, a baby can only see 8 to 10 inches from his or her face. That means that when you're approaching reading a book to a baby, it might be a little bit more of an awkward experience. But it's important to note that that lap-sit experience is still really, really important for your baby. It might be a little odd because the baby can't hold his head up or because you don't really feel like they're getting anything out of reading, but rest assured they are, and it will become more comfortable for you. Babies also don't develop good color vision until around 5 months. So it's important to be looking at books that are either black and white or have some high contrast elements to them. So this book is just black and white. It is wordless. It is just black images on a white background. This is really great for that contrast. So baby can really see the images on the page and they're not hindered by their lack of color vision. This is also great, this kind of book, to be used not just for lap sit when you have your baby in your lap, but for when they're doing tummy time, which for some babies can be not a very pleasant experience. This can be a way of increasing the number of minutes they're able to stay in that position. And by incorporating books to that experience, you're also sending the message to your baby that books can be used in different ways. So again, this is the high contrast that we want to see for babies younger than 5 months so that they can really perceive the images on the page. Faces are really important when we're talking about board books and even picture books a little later on. So newborns will stare more and longer at the image of a face than they will at any other image. And that stands true as baby gets older. Babies who are kind of late babyhood, early toddlerhood might even find great pride in being able to say or sign baby when pointing out those images in the book. This one is a great title for not just younger babies to be able to see images of faces, but it also has some interactive qualities. So when baby is hungry, baby loves a yummy banana. Find the banana. So an older baby or a toddler might be able to point out successfully the image of the banana, while a younger baby might just enjoy seeing faces and seeing different kinds of faces. This book is a great example of having a diversity of faces, and that's really important for every baby who's developing, to see faces that look like theirs and that don't. As early as 3 months, babies can discern the difference between their own race and others. and eventually show a preference for their own race. And that makes it even more important to expose babies to diversity in the characters that they're seeing in books. So that might be something that you're looking for when you're looking at what faces are being represented. Oftentimes, parents of young children find that a little difficult because there are so many titles that don't contain faces, that aren't really about people. There's a lot of animals in children's literature, but just know that that's something that is another way you can diversify what you're exposing your child to so that they can learn more about the world around them. This is a great example of a book that's interactive, peekaboo, that also lends itself to interaction between parent and child. It might spin off into a game, and it shows you a diversity of baby skin colors, hair colors, which again, babies and young toddlers really love to look at. So we've touched a little bit on interactive books, but one thing to note that, as we said, board books are a very sensory experience. Babies learning about everything in the world around them, and books are part of that experience. So a lot of board books have an interactive element that helps baby develop their fine motor skills. So you can see this one has sliders in it, so baby can put their finger in here and slide and see a different image. So they're learning that their actions have causes and effects. So if they go like this, they see stars. If they go like this, the stars go away. They're learning how to use their fingers and hands in different ways, and they're seeing how that can have an impact on the book. That's something that you can do for your child, or they can do for themselves. And again, through that modeling, they can learn how to develop those skills. So there's sliders, there's lift the flaps, lots of different ways that you can incorporate fine motor skills into that reading time. As your baby gets older, you're also going to want to incorporate some concepts and some ideas about the world, and maybe stories into the board books that you're seeking. So for instance, Germs Are Not for Sharing. This is the kind of book that is also going to include some sort of instructive element to it. So a board book can be a great way of opening up those conversations with your child. And this one also features that diversity that we talked about before. So these books are going to be better for, the 2s and 3s. Once they start understanding the world around them a little bit more, they can start understanding concepts from a book. And one thing that I think parents sometimes forget is that you have to enjoy the book as well. And that might be tough to imagine if you have to read it 30, 40, 100 times. But when you're seeking board books, think of something that you're going to be able to read a couple of times and it's not going to irritate your socks off. So reading the book yourself is a great way of figuring out, can I tolerate this? Is the rhyme something I'm going to enjoy sharing with my baby or toddler, or is it something that's going to irritate me to no end? This is a great example of a book that's kind of clever, and grown-ups would find something to enjoy in it as well. Shh, this book is getting sleepy. Come closer. Ask it. Did you brush your teeth? Yes. Ask it. Did you go pee-pee? Yes. Okay, let's read it a little story. So there's a little fun interactive element to it. You might not like this, I might just like it, but what the grown-up wants to read is really important as well, because you're the one who's going to be doing most of the reading. And one last tip, whenever you are reading a board book, do not feel like you have to read every single word on the page exactly the same way every single time. So this is Primeras Palabras, 100 First Words. This book is in Spanish, just by chance. And we do have a large Spanish board book collection at the library. But this is an example of a book that my toddlers love. They love having each individual word read aloud to them, and it drives me nuts. However, there are lots of ways to avoid reading the specific words on the page. If that's something that's just something you can't even tolerate doing anymore, look at anything else on the page and see whatever you can say aloud. It's really the elements of hearing your voice and turning the pages is all your baby or child is looking for at this juncture. Say, oh, I see this is purple. This is blue. This is brown. Talk about the colors on the page. Say, how many animals do we see on this page? 1, 2, 3. How many boats do we see on the page? Create more of a conversation element with your baby or older toddler. And it might extend the lifespan of what you can tolerate. Because as we know, babies and young kids can tolerate a lot more repetition than we as adults are used to. So make it as interesting for yourself as possible and don't feel tied down to the words on the page. It's all about that whole sensory experience. It's not about doing whatever you can to be true to the author's words. So I hope this has demystified the process of finding a board book a little bit for you. And remember, you can always call the library for any assistance in picking out books for your child.